Genesis chapter 28. Let's begin reading in verse number 18 down to the end of the chapter. Genesis chapter 28, verses 18 through 22. It says, "And Jacob rose up early in the morning and took the stone that he had put for his pillows and set it up for a pillar and poured oil upon the top of it. And he called the name of that place Bethel. But the name of that city was called Luz at the first. And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, If God will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat, and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall the Lord be my God. And this stone which I have set for a pillar shall be God's house. And of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the tenth unto thee." So Jacob had a dream. Here he was traveling away from his mom and dad out to a new land, and he's kind of scared, and he's going along the way, and he doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to leave mom and dad. Okay, I left home when I was 17 or 18 years old, and that's normal. And I was probably ready to go about 15 years old, to be honest. And but leaving home for good is a scary thing. And Jacob did not want to go, but he was afraid Esau was going to kill him. So here he is traveling along. He lies down for a rest. He uses a rock for a pillow, and during the night he has kind of a nightmare. And he realizes the place where he is the portal or the gateway to heaven, a gateway to God. He says, this place where I'm at is a special place. And Jacob is scared. He realizes if I can communicate with God, if I can talk to God anywhere in the world, surely this is the place where God will hear me. Now actually Jacob was wrong in that, as we learned this morning. God can hear you in the belly of a whale at the bottom of the ocean. Right? But here Jacob is an unbeliever. He is a lost man. Okay? And he comes up and he says, God, let's make a deal. He says, I'm going to make a vow to you, God. He says that if you will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, and let me go home to my parents, he says, then, on that condition, if you fulfill what I ask, I want food, I want a house, I want clothes, I want a car, I want a good comfortable living, I want a nice income. If you give me all these things, God, then I will make you my God. So in other words, right now, God was not his God. He had little interest in God. The only interest he had in God was, God, what can you give me? Not what can he give to God. And why should Jacob be interested in giving God anything? After all, that was not his God, right? Why would a lost person care about God? Why would a lost person care about what his responsibility is to God? Because a lost person's God is not our God. A lost person's God is the God of materialism, the God of this world, and the God of this flesh. So Jacob says, I want you to give me stuff, God. I want free stuff from you. I want to go home. I want to go see my mom. If you give me stuff, God, if you do that for me, then you will be my God. Young people, have you made God your God? It says, and this stone have I set for a pillar shall be God's house, and of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the tenth unto thee. So what does Jacob do? He bribes God. Now that might work in the police force, right? That might get you out of a ticket. You give the officer a little tip or grease money, whatever it's called. And Jacob says he's probably done this before, right? He's probably offered people tips to use daddy and mommy's money to get him out of trouble before, maybe. And he says, God, I'm in a big heap of a mess right now, and I know you're here. I know you hear me. I just had this really weird dream. I know that this is the place of this is your place. This is your house. El Bethel. God's house of God. That means house. And so Jacob says, God, you be my God, and when you are my God, if you give me a bunch of free stuff, I'm going to give you 1/10. Now, I'm not a mathematician. Okay? I don't work for the Internal Revenue Service. Okay? I'm not an IRS agent. But I do know this, that if someone gives me something for free, and I give him 1/10 of what he gave me, I'm up 90% in that bargain. Right? If you want to go into business with me, and I make you an offer that says, you give me 100 pesos, and I will give you 10 pesos, I'm going to come out ahead. And this Jacob, in his twisted, lost mind, thought that this was a good deal. God, take the bargain. Take it, God. You can have 10% of everything you give me. Because he doesn't know God. All the brute beasts can understand is what is natural to them in the flesh. Peter says they are brute beasts. They're not able, they're not capable of understanding spiritual things. You who are believers say, we can understand things that are spiritual. Why? Because we have that nature, a new nature in us. But a lost person does not have the ability. They are brute beasts. They're like an animal. I have never seen dogs, when you feed them, I've never seen them form a line to get to the food. I've never seen them defer one before the other. All they know is what's in their nature. You put out food, they're going to eat it. You stick your hand in the way, the hand's going to get bit. Why? It's their nature. They are brute beasts. They do not have understanding. A lost person. This is Jacob's nature. But you know what? It was not the nature of his father. It was not the nature of his grandfather. Turn now a couple chapters. We're going to stay in Genesis chapter 31. Genesis chapter 31, verse number 3. While you're turning there, I'll read the first couple verses. And he heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob had taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's hath begotten all this glory. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. Verse number 3. And the Lord said unto Jacob, Return unto the land of thy fathers, and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. God says, hey Jacob, remember that deal you offered to me where you're going to give me 10%? And Jacob thought that God was going to be happy and excited because God was going to get rich off of Jacob. God was going to get rich off of Jacob's 10%. And God says, hey, remember you made that deal with me, Jacob? Well, I doubt Jacob was actually giving 10%. He's a lost man. Why should his word to God mean anything? And God says, hey Jacob, I've got a plan for you. I want you to go back home to your mom. I want you to go back home to Isaac, to your dad. I've kept you alive, and under Laban you've become rich. You have 4 wives now, 2 wives and 2 concubines. And he said, I've given you children, I've given you things of this world. I fulfilled my end of the bargain that I never agreed to. Nowhere does God say, okay, Jacob, make sure that 10%, huh? Not 9.9, huh? 10%, huh? Okay, God didn't say deal. God didn't reach down, come down that ladder, send Gabriel down there to shake on it. Okay? He didn't take the deal. And just like this morning we talked about how in our nature we'd be striking people dead all the time. This would be one of those times where it'd probably be a good idea in our mind to go and strike Jacob dead. You don't make a deal with God, Jacob. You don't do that. But God says, no, Jacob, I love you. I have compassion on you. I have a plan for you. I'm not going to strike you dead, Jacob. Go ahead. You stick to your deal. I'm gonna let my deal. I'm gonna give you raiment. I'm gonna give you food. I'm gonna make you rich. I'm gonna give you wives. I'm gonna give you cattle and sheep. And I'm gonna let you go back home to your mom and dad. God says, everything that you requested, Jacob, you wicked, sinful sinner. You born in the flesh, living in the flesh man, I'm going to give you what you want. Not because Jacob deserved it, but because God loved him and God had a plan for him. So we see that in verse number 3, then look down to verse number 5. It says, and said unto them, Jacob talking to his wife, I see your father's countenance, that is not toward me as before. But the God of his dad, my father, hath been with me. Jacob could have said, but my God was with me. But he would be lying. And his wife knew he would be lying. God was not Jacob's God yet. Jacob was still a lost man. Whose God was it? His father's. Young people, whose God do you have? Is he your God, or is he your father's God? Is he your father's God? Is he the God of your mother and the God of your father, or is he your God? At some time in a person's life, at a young age, you have to decide, will I do what's right because mom and dad tells me to, and I'll get in trouble if I don't? Or will I do what's right because their God is my God? And I will honor God, not for their sake, but for his sake. Jacob had not done this yet. He said to his wife, he said, hey, the God of my father hath visited me. Look down in verse number 13, still in Genesis 31. God speaks to Jacob and says, I am the God of Bethel. Do you remember that? Where thou anointest the pillar, and where thou vowedest a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee out from this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. God says, it's still me. Jacob, arise. What did the shipmaster say when he saw Jonah sleeping this morning? Does anybody remember? What was the word he said? Arise. Arise. You remember? The shipmaster, representing God, representing Christ, came to Jonah, woke him up, and said, arise. Now God comes to Jacob and says, Jacob, I should smite you dead. You did not give me my cut. You undercut my 10%. Now the cattle on my hills are going hungry. God didn't do that. God says, I know, Jacob, that you're a lost man. I know that you try to rip me off and cheat me just like you do to everybody else. I know what a supplanter you are. You're a heel-holding deceiver. I know that's you, Jacob. That's your nature. And God says, but you know what, Jacob? I'm going to come to you anyway. I'm the God of Bethel. I haven't written you off. I have not struck you dead. I have not decided that you have no value to me. God says, I'm still giving you some more chances, Jacob. Time to go home. I'm going to let you go home. You have to be wondering what's going on in the mind of Jacob. Jacob's thinking, well, you know, I talked to God before. I made him these promises. I was going to make God rich. And then I didn't do it. I lied to God. And now God's coming back to me. And God's saying, though you do not honor me, yet I will honor you. Though you cheated and lied to me, yet I will be faithful to you, though you are unfaithful to me. Thank God for his faithfulness to us. Thank you that God came to us. God loved us first. Amen. Now let's go down to verse number 29. Verse number 29, same chapter, Genesis chapter 31. It is in the power of my hand. This is when he's fighting with his father-in-law Laban. It is in the power of my hand to do you hurt. But the God of your father spake unto me yesternight, saying, take heed that thou speak not to Jacob, either good or bad. See, even his father-in-law Laban knew that Jacob had no God. That the God that spoke to Laban was not Jacob's God. Wouldn't it be a shame? What a shame it would be that if a lost person came to you, a lost person came to me and said, the God of your pastor told me or is convicting me about something. Or the God of your coworker, or the God of your church mate, or the God of your parents, or the God of your children, or the God of your siblings. Should not be that way. When the lost see us, they should see us as God, as our God. He's my God. I don't worship God. I don't live for God through the life of somebody else. I don't take God's word to somebody else. He is my God. Personally, there was a time in my life where I had to decide, as a Christian, what I was going to do. Was I going to let him remain and stay the God of my father, or was I going to make him as my God? And I decided, God, you will be my God. So if someone comes to me and says, hey, the God of your father spoke to me last night, I would be ashamed. Don't you know he's my God too? Don't you know he's big enough to be the God of my father, the God of my grandfather, and to be my God too? Now let's look now down to verse number 42. Genesis chapter 31, verse number 42. It says, this is Jacob. He's responding now. Jacob says, except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac, had been with me, surely thou hadst sent me away now empty. God has seen mine affliction and the labor of mine hands, and rebuked thee yesternight. Whose God was it? Did Jacob have a God yet? It was the God of whom? Abraham. The God of Abraham, fear of Isaac. That's what went and spoke to Laban. That's what the fear. Laban was afraid. Not of Jacob's God. Not of Jacob. Laban was afraid of the God of Abraham. When God revealed himself to Abraham, he didn't say, hey Laban, it's me, Jacob's God. Because Laban said, hey, I'm not afraid of you. You're the same, Jacob has the same God that I do. And I'm not afraid of him either. But when God visited Laban, God says, I am the God of Abraham. And Laban, his back straightened up. Right? His posture quickened up really quick. Because he knew and he feared the God of Abraham. May God, our God, be feared by the lost as well. Now let's go down to verse number 53, that same chapter. So Laban and Jacob had a big fight, and they put a pillar of rocks between the two, and they said, we're never going to pass these pillars, this rock, ever again. You stay on this side, I'll stay on this side, we'll never see each other again. Verse number 53. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judged betwixt us, and Jacob sware by the fear of his father Isaac. Jacob's God was still the God of his father. Look now, Genesis chapter 32, verse number 9. And Jacob said, oh God, this is when Esau was coming after him. He thought Esau was finally going to kill him. He had 400 armed men. And Jacob said, I am doomed. Now, Jacob comes to God. It says, and Jacob said, verse number 9, O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, the Lord which saidst unto me, return unto thy country and to thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee. I am not worthy of the least of all thy mercies, and of all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant. For with my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I am become two bands. Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me, and the mother with the children. So here we see that Jacob goes before God, and he says, God, I'm not worthy. God of Abraham, this God who's way out here, God of my grandfather Abraham and my father Isaac, I come to you now, not worthy of the least of your mercies. What is Jacob doing? What's he doing? What was it when we went before our God and said, God, you've been a stranger to me. I know only of you as the God of this guy or that guy. God of my father, God of the guy I work with. Now I come to you and I offer to you and I say to you, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy of the least of all your blessings. Jacob came to God and says, God, remember that deal I cut with you? Remember those percentages that we worked out, the 10th and all that thing? Jacob comes and he says, you're the God of my grandfather, the God of my father. God, I don't deserve raiment. That's clothing. He says, God, I don't deserve the food. God, I don't deserve to see my mom and dad again. God, I don't deserve the least of your mercies. Jacob's father's God became his God. He doesn't say, God of my fathers. It's now his God. He finally grew up. Verse number 30. After Jacob wrestled with the angel all night, verse number 31, it says, and Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. What happened? Did he say, I have seen the God of my father face to face? Did he say, I saw the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac face to face? No, not anymore. He says, that God, my God. Amen. I don't serve the God of my fathers anymore. I serve my God. He took him for himself, the God that had been so far away. The God he tried to cut deals with, the God that all he wanted to do was just get stuff out of. Jacob finally says, forget about the stuff, God. I don't need that stuff from you. I don't need you to feed me. I don't need you to keep me alive. I don't need you to give me clothes. I don't need you to bring me to my mom and dad. God, be my God. I don't deserve the least of your mercies. Jacob got saved. And he doesn't call God the God of his fathers anymore. Turn now to Genesis chapter 33. Genesis chapter 33. Verse number 10 and 11. Now Jacob is talking with Esau, and Esau says, don't worry, we're friends. I'm not going to kill you. In fact, I don't even need your gift. And if you want, you can come with me and we'll be brothers again. And Jacob said, nay, I pray thee, verse number 10, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, as though I had seen the face of God. And thou wast pleased with me. Take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought to thee, because God hath dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him and he took it. Jacob says, what was it that Jacob finally said? That deceiver, he wanted a birthright, he wanted a blessing, he wanted God to give him food and raiment. Finally, he uses a word that he had never used before. A word that we as Christians need to use and to learn, to accept, and be thankful for. What's that word? It is enough. Amen. It's enough that God would be my God. Amen. Teenagers, young people, I'm going to tell you, it is enough that your God and your fathers would become your God. You don't need a lot of money. You don't need fancy things. You don't need a comfortable job. If you can take the God of your fathers, the God of your pastor, the God of this church, the God of the Bible, and that God would become yours, it is enough. Amen. Jacob became a Christian. And in verse number 20, in closing, verse number 20, it says, and he erected there an altar and called it Elohim Israel. That means the God of Israel. His name was Israel at this point. But Jacob says, I'm going to build a new altar at this place. And no more is going to be El Bethel about housing and raiment and food. He says, from now on, this new altar is going to be this. Not just that I know it, not just that my brother Esau knows it, but that every passerby, everyone that would pass by, I'm publicly declaring, kind of like a baptism in the New Testament. He builds an altar, and he says, I want everyone to know it is enough. What's enough? That God is the God of Israel. Laban, don't call him the God of my father anymore. Don't call him the God of Abraham anymore. If you want to refer to God, if he visits you in a dream again, I want you to call him the God of Jacob. Amen. One of these days, young people, you're going to be tested. You're going to be in a battle. And you're going to have to let everyone know, including yourself and those around you, it's not someone else's God anymore. It's not about dressing right because you want to please your parents. It's not about going to church because you want to make other people happy. When the battle comes, you have to know and be certain that you made that decision that God is your God, not someone else's. So is he your God this afternoon? Let's turn to 2 Samuel chapter 7. 2 Samuel chapter 7. Isn't it great? Isn't it wonderful to say, God is my God, and it is enough? Amen. How many people hate it when you have enough? Raise your hand. You hate having enough. Right? Everyone wants to have enough. How about this word? How about more? Right? How about more? Yes, God, this is enough. Just that you would be my God is enough. How about more? David. 2 Samuel chapter 7. And it came to pass, when the king sat in his house, and the Lord had given him rest round about from all his enemies, that the king said unto Nathan the prophet, see now, I dwell in an house of cedar, but the ark of God dwells within curtains. David was an amazing man. What did David do? Come on, what did he do? Yeah, you know David, right? King David? Alright, what did he do? Not the song leader, he didn't do anything. He did what? He killed a Goliath, a giant, right? Come on, David, Goliath, never heard that story? What else did David do?
Killed Uriah.
He killed Uriah. He did do that, yeah. Failures. Victories. He became king from being a dirt poor farmer. He was just a shepherd, a nobody, a nothing. He rose to become the king. After all the great things that David did, when did God offer David the kingdom? When did God, the Davidic covenant, when did God say to David, David, you serve me faithfully for life, and I will establish your rule and your reign forever and ever and ever. Was it when David killed Goliath? Nope. Was it when David became the king? No. When was it when God says, I'm so touched, I'm so impressed by you, David, now with this decision, I offer you an eternal kingdom. That we learned about the king needs to be from the root of David. What was the decision that David made that so impressed God? It's right here in this verse, chapter 7, verses 1 and 2. What's so special about this decision? It's David's decision to build God a temple. What's special about that? We read this and we said, okay, next, how about killing another giant or something, right? We kind of skip right through it. What's so great about what David did here? It says that David was in his house. David was in his house and he was thinking. He thought, you know what? God's given me rest. God has given me a house of cedar to dwell in. And then David began to think. He thought, you know what? God does not have a house to live in. God dwells in curtains, in the tabernacle. David began to think, God, you're my God. No question there. God was David's God. But David decided, you know what else I want from you, God? David didn't look at God as just his God. David looked upon God as his friend. David says, I'm glad that you're my God, but I want you to be my friend. David cared how God felt. David cared where God slept. David cared about the room that God was in. Verse 3 says, and Nathan said to the king, go do all that is in thine heart, for the Lord is with thee. And it came to pass that night that the word of the Lord came unto Nathan, saying, go and tell David, my servant David, thus saith the Lord, shalt thou build me an house for me to dwell in? Whereas I have not dwelt in any house since the time that I brought up the children of Israel out of Egypt, even to this day, but have walked in a tent and in a tabernacle, in all the places wherein I have walked with all the children of Israel. Spake I a word with any of the tribes of Israel, whom I commanded to feed my people Israel, saying, why build ye not me a cedar? God says, David, I am touched. God says, never to Moses, never to Abraham, or to Isaac, or to Jacob, never to Samuel, never to any of the judges. Never once did I complain, God says. Never once did I ask anyone to build me a house. God says, I was content. I've been walking around in a tent, in a tabernacle. Nobody cared where I slept, David. No one looked at me as their friend. They think of me as an it, as a thing, as someone to be feared, as a God. But David, you look at me not as something to be feared, not as a force, not as a thing, not as an object. David, you look upon me as my friend. And David says, God said to David, I'm going to establish your throne forever and ever. Why? Because David, you have a tender heart for me. David, you don't look at me as someone that can kill you, as someone that you're afraid of. You look at me as your buddy, as your friend. And God says, I'm touched, David. I can't believe no one ever thought about where I sleep at night. No one ever thinks about how God feels, how God's doing, how God's day is going. Because we see Him off somewhere way up there in heaven, high and lifted up, holy on His throne. As He is. He is our God, right? But David says, I want more. God, I want you to be my God. God, I want you to be my friend. God was touched. Verse number 8. Now therefore, so shalt thou say unto my servant David. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I took thee from the sheepcote, from following the sheep, to be ruler over my people, over Israel. And I was with thee whithersoever thou wentest, and have cut off all thine enemies out of thy sight, and have made thee a great name, like unto the name of the great men that are in the earth. Moreover, I will appoint a place for my people Israel, and will plant them, that they may dwell in a place of their own, and move no more. Neither shall the children of wickedness afflict them any more, as before time. And as since the time that I commanded judges to be over my people Israel, and have caused thee to rest from all thine enemies, also the Lord telleth thee that He will make thee an house. Here is David at rest from his enemies. The comfortable bed. He had aircon. He had a car. He didn't have to worry about his income anymore. He had food. He had servants. He had everything he needed. He had everything he wanted. It was enough for him. He had enough. And then David was just talking to God one day. And David was saying, hey God, remember that time when I was just a boy and that lion attacked those sheep? And God, remember that time you were with me and I killed that lion? Wasn't that great, God, how we fought together? Oh, to be young again. Remember that time, God, when that bear came? And God, remember that time me and you, we teamed up? We tag-teamed that bear, and together, God, you and me, we fought like crazy. We fought to the death, and we killed that bear. Remember that, God? Wasn't that great? Oh, the sheepcoat. Remember, God, the sheepcoat? That's talking about specifically a time where Saul was chasing David. And David's like, hey, God, remember that time where you and me, we were running away from King Saul? Remember that time he was trying to kill me, God? Remember that time I had to run around that sheepcoat? I had to hide inside the caves in that mountain. God, wasn't that great how you delivered me? Remember how scared I was, God? Wasn't that silly now that I would be scared about something like that when I was your anointed? And David's just going back. He's saying, God, remember the good times. Remember, God, that time we were out in the field together. Remember you didn't have a bed. I didn't have a bed. I didn't even have good water to drink. Remember that, God? Remember we were out in the fields. Remember we were out in the rain. Remember when things were difficult and times were tough and times were hard. Remember, God, all the things we went through together and the memories we had. And now I'm in a house of cedar. God, how about you? I want you to have a house. I don't want you to be left out in the field. I don't want you to be chased around by King Saul. God, I want to give you a house made out of cedar. A gold house. You can walk and leave that tabernacle. You can leave the tent behind like I left that field behind. And he didn't feel the dew of the morning anymore. David didn't worry about someone trying to kill him in the night when he fell asleep. David didn't worry about the taste of his water to drink anymore. And David said, God, we're not scrapping it out like we used to. We're not fighting tooth and nail to the death, just trying to survive one more hour, just trying to survive one more day, just trying to make it through the night, wondering if we'd be killed in our sleep. God, we don't worry about that anymore. God, I want you to have what I have. I want you to have more than what I have. God, having you with me together in the field, it is enough. It is enough for me that you would be my God. But God, I want you to be my friend. I want you to be my friend. Amen. Verse number 12, and when the days be fulfilled, and thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, I will set up thy seed after thee, which shall proceed out of thy bowels, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build an house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom for how long? Forever. He said, David, Nathan, you go tell David this. David, he says, when you're dead, when you sleep with your fathers, when your soul's gone from your body and you're up here in heaven and we're back together talking face to face like we did back there in the field. David, I promise you, David, I promise you that your rule, your reign, your throne, your kingdom will be established forever.
Amen.
God didn't promise him that when he killed Goliath. God didn't promise him that when he became king. God did not promise him that when he killed a bear. God did not promise him that when he killed a lion. God made that promise when David said, I made you my God, and I'm going to make you my friend. Young people, have you even made him your God? If you have, why not make him your friend? If you read the book of the Song of Solomon, David's son, Solomon, and you look at the words and how Solomon talks about God. What's it like? It's like a man and his wife. Solomon doesn't talk about God like he's some kind of far-off being in a distant universe or a galaxy. Solomon says, thou art fair, beloved, thou art fair. Thou art beautiful. He talks to God as if he's right there next to him. David put that into his son Solomon. David taught Solomon, God is your friend. God is there to be talked to. Yes, sure, you should fear God, absolutely. But why not go beyond there and make him your friend, like Solomon did? Like how David taught Solomon. Thou art fair, my love. Thou art fair. Would to God that we would make him not just a God, but that he would be a friend. Let's bow for a word of prayer.